For the last few years, Nvidia has been at the center of the AI universe. Its chips power the vast majority of advanced AI training clusters. Its GPUs dominate data centers. Its valuation has surged alongside the AI boom. In many ways, Nvidia has become the single most important hardware company in modern technology. But when one company sits at the center of a technological wave this large, concentration risk builds quietly in the background. So what could Nvidia's next crisis look like, and why could it shock the entire tech industry? The first potential pressure point is customer concentration. A significant portion of Nvidia's revenue comes from a small number of hyperscale cloud providers and large tech firms. These companies are racing to build AI infrastructure, and Nvidia's GPUs have been their primary choice. But those same customers are also building custom chips. Major cloud providers are investing heavily in in-house AI accelerators designed to reduce dependency on external suppliers. While these custom chips may not fully replace Nvidia's highest-end GPUs overnight, even partial substitution could shift demand patterns. If hyperscalers successfully scale internal alternatives, Nvidia could face slower growth than markets currently expect. Given how heavily its valuation reflects continued dominance, even a modest demand recalibration could ripple across tech stocks. The second pressure point is geopolitical risk. Nvidia operates in a global supply chain. Advanced chip manufacturing relies heavily on specialized fabrication facilities located outside the United States. Export controls have already limited sales of certain high-performance chips to specific markets. Further tightening of trade restrictions could affect revenue streams or complicate product roadmaps. Conversely, escalating geopolitical tensions affecting semiconductor manufacturing hubs could disrupt supply entirely. Because Nvidia's chips are foundational to AI infrastructure, any major supply disruption would not only impact Nvidia, but also cloud providers, startups, enterprise customers, and government projects. A third risk lies in infrastructure bottlenecks. Even if Nvidia continues producing cutting-edge GPUs, customers must have data centers, power capacity, and cooling systems ready to deploy them. Data center construction delays, grid constraints, or transformer shortages can slow GPU deployment. If infrastructure expansion lags behind chip supply, order timing may shift unpredictably. That creates revenue volatility. And in a market that prices Nvidia for sustained explosive growth, volatility can be destabilizing. Another possible crisis scenario involves technological disruption. Today, Nvidia leads in GPU-based AI acceleration, but the AI hardware landscape is evolving rapidly. Alternative architectures, custom ASICs, domain-specific accelerators, and potentially new computing paradigms are gaining investment. If a competitor introduces a more energy-efficient or cost-effective architecture that gains broad adoption, Nvidia's dominance could be challenged. History shows that hardware leadership can shift quickly when architectural transitions occur. The industry has seen dominant players disrupted before. There is also the margin question. Nvidia's profitability has expanded significantly due to intense demand and limited supply. However, as production scales and competitors increase capacity, pricing pressure could emerge. If margins compress, earnings growth may not match current expectations. For a company that has become a proxy for the AI boom itself, any earnings disappointment could reverberate across the entire sector. Another underappreciated risk is overinvestment by customers. Hyperscalers and enterprises are spending aggressively on AI infrastructure. If demand projections prove overly optimistic, or if AI monetization takes longer than expected, companies may slow capital expenditures. That would reduce GPU orders. Because Nvidia's growth has been tied to massive infrastructure expansion, a pause in data center build-out could feel like a shock, even if long-term demand remains intact. Energy constraints also pose indirect risks. AI clusters consume enormous electricity. As governments and utilities grapple with grid capacity and environmental concerns, large-scale data center expansion may face regulatory scrutiny. If energy availability becomes a limiting factor, GPU deployment slows regardless of technological capability. There is also the software ecosystem factor. Nvidia's competitive strength is not only hardware, it is also its software stack. Developers rely on its programming frameworks to build AI models efficiently. However, Open standards and alternative software ecosystems are evolving. If developers increasingly adopt hardware-agnostic tools, switching costs could decrease over time. That could weaken Nvidia's lock-in advantage. Importantly, none of these risks guarantee a crisis. Nvidia remains deeply embedded in the AI infrastructure stack. Its research capabilities are strong. Its partnerships are extensive. Its roadmap continues to push performance boundaries. But the scale of its centrality creates systemic exposure. If Nvidia faces a significant disruption, whether supply-related, competitive, regulatory, or demand-driven, the impact would extend far beyond one company. Cloud providers would reassess deployment timelines. Startups dependent on GPU access could face cost spikes or delays. Enterprise AI adoption might slow. Semiconductor suppliers, energy providers, and cooling technology firms could feel secondary effects. Markets have increasingly treated Nvidia as a bellwether for AI momentum. A sharp slowdown in its growth could influence broader investor sentiment toward the entire tech sector. Why could Nvidia's next crisis shock the entire tech industry? Because the AI ecosystem has grown highly concentrated. When a single hardware provider underpins a majority of advanced model training and inference capacity, systemic risk increases. The more capital flows into one choke point, the more sensitive the system becomes to disruption at that point. This does not mean collapse is imminent. It means interdependence has deepened. The tech industry's future growth, across cloud computing, enterprise software, robotics, biotech, and more, relies heavily on continued expansion of AI compute. And AI compute today relies heavily on Nvidia. That concentration has fueled extraordinary growth. But it also means that if pressure builds, whether from competition, geopolitics, infrastructure constraints, or demand recalibration, the shockwaves would travel quickly. In an era defined by AI acceleration, Nvidia's stability has become synonymous with tech sector confidence, which is precisely why any major disruption would not stay contained. It would echo across the entire industry.